actually is concerned with vipassana. This is vipassana. Not the type of vipassana meditation that nowadays people learn, because the type of vipassana meditation that you learn nowadays is based on the Visuddhimagga, the 16 jhanas, which was created very, very much later. And the recent vipassana meditation was started with Mahasi Sayadaw, who created this Mahasi method of meditation 30 years ago, and then followed by Goenka and the rest. So all this is new invention. 50 years ago or 100 years ago, you talk to people about vipassana meditation, nobody knows. So things that are new, don't believe so easily. You go back to the original words of the Buddha. Always remember, the Buddha says, in the future when he's no more around, take the suttas as your teacher. It's our best teacher. Dependent origination of liberation. This is one of the suttas in the Samyutta Nikaya, Nidana Samyutta. Nidana is a dependent origination, concerns dependent origination, Paticca Samuppada. It's one of the more difficult topics in the Dhamma. And usually when we talk of Paticca Samuppada, we talk about the 12 links of dependent origination of suffering. This sutta is a bit special. Instead of 12 links of dependent origination, today this sutta talks about 24 links. 24 links. And it traces the steps to liberation, how we can become liberated. So it's a very important sutta, and a bit deep. So this sutta in the Nidana Samyutta is the 23rd sutta, so it's Samyutta Nikaya 12.23. At Savatthi, the Buddha said, monks, they say that the destruction of the asavas is for one who knows and sees, not for one who does not know and does not see. For one who knows what, for one who sees what, does the destruction of the asavas come about. Such is body, such its origin, such its passing away, such is feeling, such is origin, such is passing away. Similarly, perception, volition, consciousness is for one who knows thus, for one who sees thus, that the destruction of the asavas comes about. Okay, stop here for a moment to explain. What is this destruction of the asavas? Destruction of the asavas is one of the 6 abhinya, 6 higher knowledges. Out of the 6 higher knowledges, 5 concern psychic powers. 5 concern psychic powers. And this one, destruction of the asavas, the meaning is liberation, attainment of arahanthood. Because these asavas are the uncontrolled mental outflows. Our mind is leaking. All of us, the mind is leaking. And basically, this leakage is a leakage of consciousness. This asavas can be translated as uncontrolled mental outflows. And it's basically the outflows, the flow of the 6 consciousness, the seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, smelling, taste, touch, and thinking consciousness. So normally these 6 consciousness flows without our control, And this flow is very fierce, very strong, and it's very difficult to stop this flow or even to control it. So that's why it's called uncontrolled mental outflows. For a person like the Arahant, he has completed his work, he still has the sixth consciousness. The sixth consciousness still flows in an Arahant, but it is controlled. It's not like us, uncontrolled. So when the outflows, mental outflows are uncontrolled, we are always thinking. That's why when we are not doing anything, we daydream, we think of this, think of that. As how can say, your tongue, your side, he's thinking of us. So this, if continues to flow, it gives us suffering. It gives us suffering because our mind is scattered. Our energy goes out through the eye, to the ears, the nose, tongue, body and mind, and our mind is not focused. So that's why when we close our eyes, everything is dark. But for the Arahant, whose mind, he is in total control of the mind. So in the sutras it says for an Arahant, day is like night, night is like day. When he opens his eyes or closes his eyes, it's always bright. So now this flow or this uncontrolled outflows, if it continues to flow and it's time for you to take a rest and it continues to flow, you cannot sleep, At night when you want to sleep, sometimes say you get agitated over something, maybe somebody says something nasty to you in the office, and you keep thinking about it the whole day, you can't sleep. So when you go to the bed, you continue to think of it. So for you to even fall asleep, you got to switch off this computer. So you got to be able to stop the mind from flowing, at least for a short while, and then you fall asleep. But the moment you fall asleep, what happens? It flows again. You start dreaming, You start dreaming of this, dreaming of that. And depending on your karma, on your the state of your mind, your dreams reflect the state of your mind. If you're a violent person, when you go to sleep like a gangster, you have violent dreams. And if you're a lustful person, you have lustful dreams, etc. But if you have a very pleasant character, you have a Deva or Devi character, when you go to sleep, it's like Disneyland. So these outflows, it's quite difficult to control. So now, this samsara is here. When the sixth consciousness flows, then you see the world, you hear the world, you smell the smells in the world, you taste the food in the world, etc., and the thinking. So the first five consciousness, the seeing, the hearing, the smelling, taste and touch, they tell you about the outside world, right? Then the thinking consciousness tells you about the inside world. So the world is here, is in the sixth consciousness. There's no other world than in the sixth consciousness. So to attain Nibbana, you have to stop this outflows. You have to stop this uncontrolled outflows. When you stop this uncontrolled outflows, the tendency to flow is checked. So like for an Arahant, he has stopped this tendency of the mind to flow, so that when an Arahant passes away and the body dies, and the consciousness does not continue to flow. So it does not have a rebirth. So for us, who believe in the original Buddha teachings, and Arahant has finished his work, when he passes away, he is no more reborn, like what the Mahayana say.
So that is why this destruction of the asavas is liberation, because when you have destroyed the asavas, then you have stopped the flow of consciousness, and samsara is stopped. Samsara is the continued working of consciousness. So that's why the Buddha says in the suttas that consciousness is like a conjurer, a magician who makes you see one lifetime as a human being, and if you have been following the Dhamma, the next lifetime you see yourself as a Deva or a Devi. So consciousness is this conjurer. So this destruction of the asavas is liberation. From here you can see why the jhanas are important. Samadhi. Samadhi, when you attain the jhanas, the mind stops flowing. You are able to control the outflows, at least for the period you are in that jhana. If you are in that jhana for 1 hour, and for 1 hour you are able to stop the mind from flowing uncontrollably, right? That's why the Buddha says that the jhana, samadhi are the footprints of the Buddha that lead to liberation. Okay. So this sutta says to attain the destruction of the asavas, you have to know and see. And what is it that you know and see? It is the 5 khandhas, the 5 aggregates: body, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. These 5 aggregates are also called body and mind. The first one is body, then the other 4 are components of the mind: feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness is the mind part. So the 5 khandhas is body and mind. It is not nama rupa. Later books they say that nama rupa is body and mind. That's a wrong interpretation. It is the 5 khandhas that are body and mind. So because this body and mind you take to be I or mine, or I am in the 5 aggregates, or the 5 aggregates are inside of me. So you attach to these 5 aggregates because you take it to be I and mine. So it is here that the self, the ego, lodges itself. So you have to be able to see that these 5 aggregates, the body and mind, are impermanent. The nature of the 5 aggregates are impermanent, and how they arise through conditions, and they cease also through conditions. That's why here it says you have to understand such is body, feeling, volition, perception, volition, and consciousness, and such is its origin, how it arises through conditions, and such its passing away, how the 5 aggregates cease through conditions. So you attain destruction of the asavas or liberation by knowing and seeing these 5 aggregates that you take to be I and mine. Okay, then he continues. I say, monks, that the knowledge of destruction in regard to destruction has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for the knowledge of destruction? That is destruction of the asavas. It should be said liberation. Stop here for a moment now. Here is the actual series. We begin here, the actual series of this 24 links. Here it says, knowledge of destruction of the asavas is said to be due to liberation. But liberation, just now I mentioned, is actually destruction of the asavas. So what he's saying here is that knowledge of destruction of the asavas, the cause of knowledge of destruction of the asavas is the destruction of the asavas. When you have destroyed the asavas, then you know that you have destroyed the asavas, which is liberation. So here the knowledge of destruction, the cause is liberation or destruction of the asavas. So now we come to the second one. I say, monks, that liberation too, or destruction of the asavas, too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for liberation. It should be said dispassion. Dispassion. This word, Pali word, is viraga. Raga, we know, means sometimes we say greed, hatred, and delusion. Sometimes we say lust, hatred, and delusion. This word lust does not refer to sexual lust, but to excessive greed. So this raga is the same as lobha. The meaning is excessive greed, strong greed for sensual pleasures, meaning for sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. So dispassion here, viraga, means the opposite of raga. Raga is strong greed. So dispassion is totally no greed, no more interested. So here it says dispassion. Another word you can use is disenchantment. Disenchantment. Another word you can use is no more interest in the world. No more interest in the world. So when a person has no more interest in the world, has no more fire in him, then you can say in a way it's like cool, it's cooled down. The fire of lust has cooled down. So it's because this fire of lust has cooled down, that's why he can become liberated, can attain destruction of the asavas. So the third linga is dispassion, viraga. And then I say, monks, that dispassion too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for dispassion? It should be said revulsion. This word revulsion is nibbida. Sometimes, other than revulsion, it is translated as virid. Virid, revulsion, like a kind of aversion. Aversion for existence, for the world. I say, monks, that in Hokkien we say ya liao. Ya liao. So from ya liao, then you get ling liao, sim ling liao, bo ai liao. So, okay, so I say, monks, that revulsion too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for revulsion? It should be said, knowledge and vision of things as they really are. So this is the fifth condition. Knowledge and vision of things as they really are. The Pali is yatta buddha jnanandasana, seeing things as they really are. Okay, and although it is not explained here, what is it that you see and know as they really are? Although it's not explained here, actually it's the five khandhas. When you know and you see the five khandhas, that means body and mind, as it really is, as impermanent, as because it is impermanent, as a source of suffering, as subject to conditions, then you don't identify with it. Because when you identify the body and mind with yourself, you take it to be yourself, then you attach to it and it gives you suffering. And this self is not only like my body and my mind, also my son, my daughter, my husband, my wife. So when anything happens to I and mine, like my family members and all that, you suffer terribly. So after you have suffered enough, then one day, and then you think it's not worth it. If you haven't suffered enough, you still want. So this knowledge and vision of things as they really are. These things is actually the five aggregates. Then only when you have knowledge and vision of the five aggregates as they really are, then you experience revulsion of the five aggregates. I say, monks, that the knowledge and vision of things as they really are too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for the knowledge and vision of things as they really are? It should be said concentration. And this is very important. To be able to see and know clearly, you need concentration. Why? Because the Buddha always says in the suttas that the reason why we are blur, as we say, Malaysians I like to say blur, is because of these five hindrances, pancha-nivarana. These 5 hindrances cover us, so that we have very low IQ. What is these 5 hindrances? Sensual desire, ill will or anger, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry and doubt. These 5 things. So you find people with very strong hindrances, their character is base, low, vulgar people, behave like animal. Nowadays you read in the newspaper, sometimes somebody rapes the daughter, rapes the granddaughter. These are the type of people. 5 hindrances are very strong. So it will lead them to low rebirth. So when we attain concentration, our mind becomes focused. That's why I mentioned that a mind, when the asavas flow, our energy goes out to the 6 sense organs, right? To the eye to see, to the ear to hear, nose to smell, tongue to taste, body to touch, and the mind to thinking. So because our mind goes out to these 6 sense doors, our mind is scattered, so it's not focused. So when we attain concentration, the mind becomes focused, and this you need a lot of training. Meditation is all about focusing your mind. Our mind doesn't like to be focused. It's a kipochi, like to see, like to hear, like to smell, etc. So when we meditate, we train the mind to focus on one object, for example, breathing. So you will notice your breath go in, go out, go in, go out. Continue to notice the breath. Very soon you run away. You run away, you go to your office, run away to your home. So you pull it back. So when you pull it back, direct it back to your object of meditation, that is one of the factors of jhana called vitaka. Vitaka. So every time your mind runs away, you pull it back, that is vitaka. And then you keep it on your breath. For example, you are practicing a breath meditation, and you keep it focused on the breath, that is vichara. So if you want to attain jhana, these are the 2 things you need to use, vitaka and vichara. Every time the mind runs away, you pull it back as vitaka, and then you sustain it on your breath. You sustain it as long as you can. After a while, it runs away again. You use vitaka to pull it back again, and then you use vichara to sustain it on your object. You keep doing this, maybe after 1 or 2 years, you get a little bit of kung fu. You're able to keep it on the breath. When you're able to keep it on the breath without it running away, slowly your mind becomes focused. So when your mind becomes focused, this ekagata, one-pointedness, will start to arise. So when it starts to become focused, ekagata arises, then piti and sukha comes along. Piti is delight. When the mind starts becoming focused, you're able to focus it. You're happy, you're delighted, and that is piti. And then you get this very nice bliss that arises, that is sukha. So these 5 factors come together. You have vitaka, vichara, you have ekagata, then you have piti, and you have sukha. Once you have these 5 factors, and you're able to concentrate on your breath without any thoughts arising, that is the first jhana. But in the suttas it says that skillful intentions or skillful thoughts can still arise. Not ordinary thoughts, skillful thoughts in the sense that when you attain this state, then you find, this bliss arises, and you know you're entering the first jhana. And what comes to your mind? The thought, I must remember, how to retrace my steps, how I came into this state, which is so nice, which is a concentrated state. I must remember the steps I took to arrive at this. And then only that type of thought that is mentioned in the sutta, that you will have not unskillful thoughts, but skillful thoughts. Then you continue sustaining it there, and you arrive at the first jhana. And if you want to go into the second jhana, you have to cultivate this until it is stronger and stronger, and then your piti and sukha becomes more pronounced. then you're able to let go of your breath and put your attention on piti and sukha. And when you put your attention on piti and sukha, then you are no more concerned with your breath. Then you're left with three factors: piti, sukha, and ekagata. Then you arrive at the second jhana. So here concentration in the Buddha's teachings, perfect concentration or right concentration is mentioned as the four jhanas. Four jhanas. Because the four jhanas, it is a very profound state. A person attains the fourth jhana, the breath stops. It's a very deep state and very difficult to attain. It is mentioned in the sutta that the first three jhanas are perturbable. They are not imperturbable, still can be shaken. But when I enter the fourth jhana, it's such a strong state. The Buddha says it's imperturbable. Tak boleh goyang. So that when you attain that state, then according to the suttas, the mind becomes very bright. The whole mind becomes bright. And that is the best condition for knowing and seeing things as they really are. Because at that time, the hindrances dissolve away. No more hindrances, and you see very clearly, understand very clearly, and you have very high IQ. That's why it's not surprising, like somebody with a very high IQ, like Albert Einstein, his samadhi is very good. You give him a long mathematical problem, he doesn't need a computer, doesn't need a calculator, just close his eyes and does all the calculation, and after a few minutes he writes it down. How can you do that without strong samadhi, right? So anybody with a very high IQ will have very good samadhi. So this concentration. So concentration refers to the four jhanas. I say, monks, that concentration too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for concentration? It should be said happiness. Happiness is sukha. Sukha. When the mind is happy, then it can become concentrated. If the mind is not happy, then, like for example, if a person does not keep the precepts, you kill and all that, so your conscience will trouble you, and your conscience troubles you, you're not happy. You're not happy, and your mind cannot become focused. So the necessary condition for concentration is to have a very happy mind. So this happiness, you have to work for that happiness. How to work for that happiness? The basic things you have to have generosity, dana. You got to be a very, be a person who likes to help people. Then you have to have very good sila. If you have good sila, you don't harm others. So you don't have remorse. So these are the two basic things. If you do these two things, then you are happy. You know that you are a proper human being. You have a humane character. And then if you do other things like studying the suttas and meditating, then that is further supporting conditions. So the cause of concentration is happiness. I say, monks, that happiness too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for happiness? It should be said tranquility. I'd just like to mention here that if you all have seen people who have Alzheimer's disease, what we say, mong tong, lo mo liao. Some people, when they're old, their mind is very disturbed. They forget easily and they talk rubbish. Black bat, black bat. This type of persons, you find that most of the time they don't have good sila. Because they've done something wrong in the past, that their mind is full of remorse, full of disturbance. So because of that, so their mind is very disturbed. That's why they cannot attain concentration. So that's why you need happiness to attain concentration. So the cause of happiness is tranquility. And this word tranquility is pasadi, tranquility. A tranquil mind. can be a happy mind. If your mind is not tranquil, for example, if you have a lot of stress, you are in the rat race, trying to make a million or whatever, so you don't have a tranquil mind, and that is suffering. The sutta says, if you don't have a tranquil mind, that is suffering. So happiness is a tranquil mind due to tranquility. I say, monks, that tranquility too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for tranquility? It should be said rapture. Or this word rapture is piti. Delight is a better translation. Because later books, they talk about piti as though it's a very strong condition. But that is according to later books, commentaries and all that. In the suttas, it says that this piti is a subtle perception. So this piti, there are two types of carnal piti and spiritual piti. Carnal delight and spiritual delight. Carnal delight is the delight that comes from sensual enjoyment, but spiritual delight you attain when a person attains the first jhana and the second jhana, then this spiritual delight arises. Has nothing to do with sensual enjoyment. So this delight here is refers to the first and the second jhana. I say, monks, that delight too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for delight? It should be said gladness. This word gladness is pamoja. Maybe a better translation is joy. Joy. And I say, monks, that joy too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for joy or gladness? It should be said faith. Faith here refers to faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. If you have faith from understanding the Buddha's teachings, you study the Buddha's teachings, and then you know that the Buddha's teachings guide you so well that you live a skillful life, then you are very happy that you are walking the right path that will bring you to a good destination. So you have joy within you. I say, monks, that faith too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for faith? Here it says it should be said suffering. But actually, I add one more link here. It's actually searching. Because when you have suffering, you start to question. Like Ajahn Brahm likes to say, why me? Why me? Isn't it? If you have cancer, people like to question, why must I get cancer? Other people don't get cancer. Why must I get cancer? You have some other sickness, fatal sickness, and then you start to question. Or you pray for divine help and no help comes, and you start to question. So when we suffer, then we start searching. Like the Bible says, search and you shall find, knock and the door shall be opened unto you. So you have to make the effort to search. So from suffering, you start searching, you look for answers. Maybe like me, I go from one religion to another religion. Finally I come to Buddhism, then I find it very logical, it's very profound. Then I study more, then I start to understand. Then I have saddha, I have faith. And then when I have faith, I know I'm on the right track. I have joy within me. So this is a sequence. So here, although the sutta does not say, I add in one more link. It is the search. Search that gives you that faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. And then this search also has a cause, and this cause is suffering. When you suffer, you start to search. I say, monks, that suffering too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause of suffering? It should be said birth. Because this world is a world of suffering. It is not Disneyland all the time. So because it's a world of suffering because we are born into this world that we experience suffering. I say monks that birth too has a proximate cause. It does not lack the approximate cause. And what is the proximate cause of birth? It should be said bhava. This word bhava here is existence. Sometimes they translate it as being. This is one of the links in dependent origination that makes dependent origination very difficult to understand. For many years I could not understand what is this bhava. Now I think I understand what it is. So when I tell you the secret, you save many years of searching like me. This word bhava means being. What is this being? It is actually a perception. A perception. This perception is I exist. I am. So when you have this perception, I exist or I am, then this being, this living being comes into existence. Okay. You look when you compare ourselves with a tree. The tree has also got a certain kind of consciousness, right? When there's sunlight, it will move towards the sunlight, right? So it has a certain kind of consciousness. But it is different from us because it does not have the perception I exist, right? So because it does not have the perception I exist, it does not suffer like us. Suppose you take a parang and you chop the tree, it does not cry for help. It does not consider that it suffers. But if you chop me, I will cry for help. Right? So it is because of this perception, I am, I exist, that a living being comes into existence. That's why it's called existence. It's also called a being. In Chinese, what is the word for being? A living being. Zhong Sheng is one word, right? What is another word? Yu Qing, right? Yu Qing means Wu Kam Jing, Wu feeling. If you have feeling, then you have suffering. If you don't have feeling, you don't have suffering, right? So like the tree does not have feeling. So this is the difference between a living being and a tree. Here I'll divert a little bit. During the Buddha's time in India, there was a general belief that plants are beings, and that earth, the ground, the bhumi, is also a being. That's why if you look at the monks' precepts, 227 precepts, a monk is not allowed to cut grass. Monk is not allowed to chop trees because they believe at that time that plants are living beings, and they call it one faculty beings. We have 6 faculties, we have 6 senses, but they say the plant has got one faculty, one sense organ. So because of that, when they saw monks chopping trees, they got very annoyed. How can these samanas, disciples of the Sakyaputta and the disciples of the Sakyan, go and chop trees? So they complained, they spread the word around. So when the Buddha heard, the Buddha stopped monks from chopping trees. But the Buddha did not believe that trees are living beings. But the Buddha believed that inside trees there are beings. These trees are the abodes of tree spirits. Sometimes you can call them fairies if you like. So it is maybe because there are beings in trees. That's why some people, like olden days Chinese, some olden days Chinese people believe that all trees can become beings. And once they are old enough, they can turn into beings. Why? Because there are certain beings inside there that manifest. For example, you chop the tree unnecessarily, the tree spirit get angry, cause you to have an accident. And then it's like, oh, this tree caused me to have an accident, I must be a living being. So these are all animist beliefs. Like Chinese, we believe that's even the stone. If the stone is old enough, maybe it turn into a living being. That's why Indians they believe that these trees and ground. That's why ground, that is earth. The monks are not allowed to dig the earth. But in the monks' precepts, it is not a general rule that monks are not allowed to dig the earth. The Buddha said, now, if the earth contains living creatures like worms and caterpillars and all that, then a monk is not allowed to dig to harm these beings. And the Buddha also said that in the earth you have what we call orang bunyan, elves, in the English term, elves. Lord of the Rings. The Buddha also believed that there are some spirits inside. So the Buddha said to be careful. But it is pure sand, a monk is allowed to dig. There is a new earth that's been dumped there. Also, monks are allowed to dig. There's a lot of stones, no life. Monks are allowed to dig. So you find the monk's precepts that when you offer fruit to a monk, if there are seeds, the monk will say "Kapyang karohi," right? Those of you who have been kapyas, you know you are supposed to take the knife and cut it a bit, and then you say "Kapyang Bhante." Kapyang karohi means make it allowable. Kapyang is allowable. Karohi is make it allowable. So the Kapya says, Kapyang Bhante, I make it allowable, Bhante. So that's a bit. So with that ritual, a monk can take the fruit. But then these type of precepts are very minor. They're not really important, especially nowadays. I don't believe that this fruit is a living being. I don't believe that the seed is a living being. But then because it is laid down in the Vinaya and the monk's precepts, we try to keep it. It is, we can. So like for example, in the monks, in our monastery, we do this every day. But sometimes when we go out, there's some people, we go to a Buddhist society or something, people, they don't know how to do it. I don't insist. But sometimes some people misunderstand. They think I don't keep the Vinaya. Don't ask somebody to Kapya Karohi. This in the Buddha's teachings is Sila Bhatta Paramasa. Sila Bhatta Paramasa is attachment to Sila and rituals. This ritual is any ritual concerned with the religion. So if you are too attached to this kind of thing also, it's an obstacle because to attain Sotapanna, the first fruit of Aryabhuta, you have to let go of three factors, Sangyojana. One of them is attachment to rules and rituals. Rules and rituals are useful for a purpose. You must know the purpose. If you don't know the purpose, you simply attach to it every time. There's no point. Right? So if you attach to some of these things, even good thing also when you attach to it, it becomes an obstacle. For example, vegetarianism is good for health, but if you are too attached to it, it's also, I think, not correct. So, okay. So that is bhava, existence. So now I told you the secret. Bhava is being, this perception that I exist. And I say monks that existence or being too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for existence, bhava? It should be said clinging. Clinging. When you cling to something, so you are attached to something, then you cling to it. Another word for clinging is attachment, upadana, attachment. When you want it so badly, you cling to it, then that I arises, I want it. So that bhava, the perception of I arises because of clinging. Okay? For example, a small boy never tasted ice cream before. They give him ice cream, he think, wow, so nice. He wants some more. You give him another ice cream and ask him to share with another boy, he don't want to share. That's enough. You eat until you get sick now. That's enough. So when that clinging is very strong, that I am enjoying this, I want this, that bhava arises due to clinging. I say, monks, that clinging too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for clinging? It should be said craving. So when you, like a small boy, he tastes the ice cream, then he craves for it. From craving, then he has attachment for it. So craving brings about attachment. Craving also, okay. I say, monks, that craving too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause of craving? It should be said feeling. This feeling, we have a pleasant feeling, we have unpleasant feeling, we have neutral feeling. When pleasant feeling arises, then you crave for it. So, business people are very smart. They create things that give you pleasant feeling. Your feel-good channel is one. Yeah. So feeling gives you craving. So the feeling too has a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause of feeling? It should be said contact. Contact. You know, we have six sense bases. At the six sense bases, for example, form appears before your eyes, and there is contact. Once there is contact, you see. Then feeling arises, depending on what you see. And secondly, when sound comes to your ear, when it contacts your ear, also feeling arises. So at the six sense basis, when the six sense objects contact your six sense basis, then feeling arises. So contact also has a proximate cause. What is the proximate cause for contact? It's the six sense basis. It's because you have the six sense bases and the six sense organs that you have contact at the six sense bases. And what is the cause for the six sense bases? Name and form, Namarupa. Namarupa can also be translated as mentality, materiality. And then the cause for Namarupa is Vijnana, consciousness. Now these two are like Siamese twins. You know, Siamese twins, sometimes they join at the head, sometimes they join at the body. They cannot go apart from each other. So these two are the same, consciousness and Namarupa. When consciousness arises, you are conscious, right? You cognize. So what is it you are conscious of is Namarupa. So Namarupa is the object of consciousness. In English word is phenomenal. So this object of consciousness, there are two types. One is the mental object of consciousness. The other one is the physical object. So the mental object is Nama. The physical object of consciousness is Rupa, the physical world. Right? So Nama Rupa is mentality, materiality, which means phenomena. It is not mind and matter. When you investigate Nama Rupa, it cannot be mind and matter because it does not have consciousness. Consciousness is the counterpart of Nama Rupa. So Nama Rupa by itself does not have consciousness. So when consciousness arises, Nama Rupa arises. When consciousness ceases, Namarupa also ceases. They arise and cease at the same time. They are like Siamese twins, as I mentioned. So Namarupa must be the object of consciousness, which is phenomenal. So from having Namarupa, then you know that you have six sense bases. Okay. So the proximate cause for consciousness is volition. This word sankhara is another difficult word to understand. This sankhara in the Paticca Samuppada, I say there are three types of sankhara. Body, kaya sankhara, vachi sankhara, and chitta sankhara. And then later books say that sankhara means karma, creating karma, intentional action. But unfortunately, they did not notice that in the suttas there are two sets of sankharas. One is kaya, vachi, and chitta sankhara. The other one that has got to do with karma is kaya, vachi, and mano sankhara. It's different. So this one is not creating karma. But when you say volition, volition is volition is like intention, will. So you want to include karma also can, but more importantly, to me, it is the will to live. It is because of the will to live that we have consciousness. You must remember that consciousness is not an unending stream of consciousness. If you don't understand the Dhamma, we like to think that consciousness is an unending stream. Actually, in the Buddha's teachings, consciousness arises from conditions. Like for example, seeing consciousness arises and passes away very fast. And then, for example, hearing consciousness arises and passes away very fast, extremely fast. So these 6 consciousness, they arise and pass away, arise and pass away, so fast that you think that they are continuous, but actually they are arising and passing away. Now, when one consciousness arises and passes away, what is it that makes another consciousness arise and pass away? There is something that makes it arise and pass away, arise and pass away. And this something is sankhara, volition, which to me is more like the will to live, because we have a strong will to live. Every time our consciousness dies, it will light up again, just like a fire. When a fire is going off, when it's very almost about to go off, then the wind comes, slight wind, and then they come burst into flames again. So this wind is that sankhara, the volition, which has more to do of that will to live. Of course, if you want to add the karma part, you can also. So this volition also has a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause of volition? Is avidya, ignorance. It's because of ignorance that we want to continue living in samsara, because we see ourselves as this body and this mind. There is, when I used to study Hinduism, there's one holy man, he said something which was quite striking. He said the ordinary person sees himself in the world. An enlightened person sees the world in himself. His mind has opened up until the whole world is inside him. Just like the Arahant, Anuruddha. This remember Anuruddha, his psychic eye is so powerful. He can see 1,000 world systems like in the palm of his hand, so small. So an enlightened person sees the world in himself. But we, Bodo, we see ourselves in the world. So from here you can see it's because of ignorance of the Four Noble Truths that we have this will to live. We want life. And it's because we want life that the consciousness continues, bursts into, arises and passes away, and because of the will to live, it arises and passes away, arises and passes away non-stop. So from consciousness, you have Namarupa, which is the twin, Siamese twin of consciousness. And when you have consciousness and Namarupa, then you realize that you have 6 sense bases. And the 6 sense bases will bring contact at the 6 sense doors. And contact will bring upon you feeling. And because of feeling, when you have pleasant feeling, then you crave for it. And when you crave for it, then you attach to it, you cling to it. And clinging brings about existence. You see yourself, I want this. This I am arises. That being arises. And because of existence, then you see yourself born into the world. Once you have that I, then you realize, oh, I am born into the world. And birth, because of birth in the world, you have suffering. Suffering means, in the Buddha's teachings, suffering is, birth is suffering, aging is suffering, sickening is suffering, dying is suffering. Not to get what you want is suffering. To be separated from your loved ones is suffering. To be to associate with your enemies is suffering. And in short, the Buddha says the 5 aggregates of attachment, your body and your mind, is suffering. So once you have this, see yourself born into the world, you have suffering. And because of suffering, you start searching. This search is the extra one I added. So because of searching, you come into the Dhamma, then you have faith, Saddha. And after you have faith, you have understood the Buddha's teachings, and then joy arises. Then when joy arises, then you practice meditation, you put in energy, and then delight arises like piti. And from delight, you carry on, then you have passaddhi, tranquility of mind. And tranquility of mind will bring happiness. And happiness will bring about concentration, which is perfect concentration, 4 jhanas. And when you have perfect concentration, then you know and see things as they really are. In particular, you know and see the 5 aggregates, your body and mind, as they really are. And when you understand these 5 aggregates as they really are, then you have revulsion for these 5 aggregates. And after you have revulsion, then you have dispassion, disenchantment. And when you have disenchantment, then it leads to liberation. And then when you have liberation or destruction of the asavas, then you know that you have destroyed the asavas. So when you count these links, it amounts to 24, double the normal one. Double the normal one is only 12. So that's the end of this sutta. You have anything to discuss, we can discuss. When you listen to talks like this, then you understand much faster. If you go and study the Nikayas yourself, you spend many years scratching your head. So it's good to attend Dhamma talks. Okay, anything?
Bhante, what is the difference between happiness, delight and joy in these things?
There's a shade of difference. It is not very clear cut now. Just like, for example, in your mind, you have feeling, you have perception, you have volition, you have consciousness. But if you want to divide them clearly, also very difficult, because you cannot have feeling without consciousness, isn't it? Feeling is a type of consciousness, isn't it? Perception also is a type of consciousness. Volition also is a type of consciousness. So even though in the suttas they are said to be separate, but if you try to split hairs, very not so easy. But when you experience them, then there's a shade of difference. Any other thing?
Bhante, when you read books on Hinduism, it says Indians Guru, they are enlightened.
Say again, the Guru?
They are enlightened. Is in the sense enlightenment the same as Buddhist sense?
Not necessarily.
So what do they mean when they say they are enlightened?
By the standard is enlightenment. Just like in Mahayana teachings, like in Zen Buddhism, you still find stories where this disciple comes to the teacher takes a rotan and knocks his head, then he shouts, he's enlightened already. So that is, to us, that is not really enlightened. But in Mahayana Buddhism, they talk of enlightenment as the mind returning to nature. So it's like opening up of the mind. And to us, that is arupa jhana. Arupa jhana. So often the mind opens up, but that is not yet enlightenment. But it's still a high state.
Bhante, can you talk about this Kaya Sankara, Vachi Sankara and Chitta Sankara? I think the Kaya Sankara, if I'm not mistaken, is the body condition, which is the breath, isn't it?
Yes, in Paticca Samuppada, dependent origination, Kaya Sankara is the body conditioner, which is the breath, because the body depends on the breath to live. And Vachi Sankara is said to be thoughts, thinking.
Vitakka vichara,
Thoughts directed and sustained. So this, because the vachi means speech. Before you can speak, you must think, isn't it? So this thinking is vitakka and vichara. So after you think only, you can speak. That's why speech conditioner is thinking. And then the mental chitta sankhara is perception and feeling. For the chitta, the mind to work, you must have the condition of this perception and feeling. Once perception and feeling arises, it comes together with consciousness. Consciousness, the mind starts working. So you can say that this volition, this breathing, this kaya sankhara is governed by the will to live. It's because we have this will to live that we have programmed into our mind to breathe. And because it has been programmed into our mind to breathe, so it becomes almost automatic. We breathe in and out almost automatically. We don't realize actually there is a will behind it. So unless somebody stops breathing, if somebody were to strangle you or something, then you make great effort to breathe, right? So it's because of your will to live that you want to breathe. And the other one, this vachi sankhara, is due to thinking. This thinking also is concerned with the will to live, because in the aharas, the nutriments that contribute to the continuation of life, living beings, we are sustained by certain conditions, and thoughts are one of them. And when we have thinking, it sustains our continuation of our body and our mind. Same with this perception and feeling. When we have perception and feeling that comes together with consciousness, and consciousness is also one of the nutriments for the persistence of life. That's why I believe that these sankharas are connected with the will to live.
Excuse me, Bhante, I didn't catch it at the beginning. But this sutta reference is
12.23. But when you look into this sutta, it's so short. Doesn't give you it's just the bare bones. Any other thing? If you look into Buddhist teachings, you find there are a lot of, for example, meditation teachers. They teach meditation, which is the path to enlightenment, the path to liberation. And then surprisingly, you find they never explain what is enlightenment. Sometimes they say, like for example, vipassana meditation, the aim is to attain wisdom. Yeah. But liberation is not attaining wisdom. Liberation is a physical happening, and this physical happening is destruction of the asavas. So surprisingly, you find a lot of monks, they don't explain what is this destruction of the asavas. If they understand destruction of the asavas, then they understand that you cannot have destruction of the asavas, arahanthood, without the jhanas. Because when you enter a state of jhana, you have stopped the flow of asavas for as long as you are in that jhana. So at least you are able, if you abide in jhana for 1 hour, you are able to stop the asavas for 1 hour. If you are able to prolong this length of time you are in jhana, then you have more skill in stopping the asavas. So to be able to destroy the asavas, at least you must be able to stop it for some time, isn't it? So if you don't enter the jhana, you don't have the ability to enter the Buddha's jhana, then you don't have the ability to stop the flow of the asavas, which means you can never become liberated. That's why in the Buddha's teaching, in the Majjhima Nikaya, somebody asked the Venerable Ananda, what type of meditation is praised by the Buddha? What type of meditation is not praised by the Buddha? What did Venerable Ananda say? The type of meditation praised by the Buddha is the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. In other words, only this is Buddhist meditation, And then the type of meditation which is not praised by the Buddha is a type of meditation where the 5 hindrances are not eliminated. But the 5 hindrances are only eliminated when you attain the jhanas. That is quite clear in the suttas. So if you can practice a type of meditation where you cannot stop the asavas from flowing, at least for a certain period, you have no hope of enlightenment, no hope of attaining arahanthood. That's why the Buddha says that the jhanas are the footprints of the Buddha. Sometimes people like to belittle the jhanas, saying these external ascetics, they practice jhana also, they don't become enlightened. Just because they practice jhana, they don't become enlightened, doesn't mean jhana